Hey, Cam, how's it going? Name's Yanni, I'm also in Class 5, working furiously away this week to get everything finished. Been sleeping very little so far, but your work's looking great. I love the look and the render of these guys. You know, it's really cool. You've got some great, secondary actions all the way through your shot as well. Personalities are really clear. The, chomping of the donut is absolutely fantastic as well. So there's some great stuff here. Just wanted to point out a few notes, see, if you can actually polish a few things up a little bit. Um, I think kind of like the first thing that jumps out at me on frame one is that the action of both characters is really clear, but the girl on screen right on frame one, she's kind of like doing her nails, which is kind of like a nice little gesture there. But I was wondering if you could just get the hand that she's actually polishing and actually move that hand down a little bit so that it's not so kind of like way tilted back, because currently everything that's happening in silhouette, if I can get my hands roughly in the right place, is kind of like happening kind of like here. So there's a lot of kind of like little things that are happening here, and actually if you spaced out the hand a bit like that, so it's facing a bit more to camera like that, you can actually get those gestures just a little bit clearer and try to break up a bit of that space between, the hand and the little brush there that you've got over the first couple of frames. But again, that's a really tiny little thing. But I think it's just those fingers pointing all the way up aren't really working. If you actually had them pointing, a little bit further down, those silhouettes would be just a little bit clearer. Um, the contacts of the fingers on the keyboard are absolutely spot on. Really cool. I think that in you've got the change of the gesture and the guy's eyebrows on screen left in frame 12. I think you can delay those eyebrows by about maybe 1 or 2 frames. So actually have the either lead, with the eyelids to go down a little bit, and then just have the eyebrows follow in maybe 1 or 2 frames after that, because that'll just soften the brow up a little bit, make the face look a little bit more elastic. And again, when you come into frame 20 where you've got the blink, that's really cool because he's kind of like leading with the eyebrow, but really you want to see the eyelid come down as well on frame 19. You just want to see the tips of the eyelids coming down as well, which I know is just before a blink where you're going to have a lot of motion as well, but you want to get that idea that the eyebrows and the eyes are and the eyelids are actually connected and they're pushing up and down a little bit. You've got a lot of that, kind of like happening. You've got some nice shapes, they're moving up and down really nicely. You've got a nice take on her. And one of the things going back to her for an extent is that she's got kind of like a bit of a, the drop. She does a little bit of an eyebrow drop, screen right cup at frame 43. Don't necessarily think that you need that, because I think you can go straight into the take that you had before, just because you can actually get a better motion, because she's kind of like at the beginning of the shot, her eyebrows are up here, and when she goes into the take you can just have her go down and then up in the same motion, because currently it's just your eyebrows are going down, she's kind of like staring at what he's doing. It's a nice little change, but I think that with the take, it's so close to the take that you can just do that motion straight away, and it would still read pretty much the same way. I'd also have a look at your eyeline on frame 50 for her, because she's kind of like looking a bit into space. She's a little bit cockeyed, and I think you just might want to cheat the pupils just a little bit to make sure that she's looking towards screen right, because the way that you framed the computer monitor, it's on screen right, and you want to keep her eye line directed to that, even though if she would be looking straight at it, you still want to fake that a little bit so the eyes are always pointing towards the way that the object is actually on screen. So that would be frame 50 there. So the take's really cool. I think the hands here are a bit stiff because she's kind of like caught in this action here. You might want to, when you do this overlap of the hand coming up, it's only the wrist that's moving on frame 60. You might want to move the hands up a little bit as well. Not a huge amount as she goes in the surprise, she goes like that. And then just have a little bit of a motion with the wrists a bit more, because currently it really looks like she's just doing this like that, okay? And as she comes in, another thing that I'd do as well would be have a look at the arc that the her left hand does, so the one that she was actually painting the nails on. From frame 69, have a look at from frame 69 to frame 80, it comes down on the desk, and it comes down at exactly a few frames just after the other one. I think you can maybe have it even 2 frames more delayed than what you have now. But I just have a look at trying to get a bit more of an arc to it as well, because it's kind of like moving. The movement's really, really, really towards camera. So you might want to go like this or like that. I think pretty much for my money it's down and up like that. So just really break it up so that visually in the camera space as well, it'll look like the arc goes down and to a side of screen like that. I love the way that, you know, you've got this blink that he looks up. That's really cool. And I think that her posing's really good. I love the way that she comes back down on the desk. I think you've got the hand a little bit in the desk itself at frame 148. Just check the screen left hand for her. It looks like it's actually going into the desk at that frame there, which I'm not sure, but you can probably have a look at it from the other cam. And again, have a look at the eye line as well. Her eye currently is just floating a little bit, so you've got on frame 164, sorry, you've got her eye, one of them is completely touching the inside of the eyelid, and the other one's just like in the middle. Make sure that both, if she's actually looking, you know, in both eyes, in the sense of you never have like a huge amount of space on one side of the eye and the other one's touching one of the edges, because it just again looks that idea that she's cross-eyed again. I'm gonna look at, yeah, the little flick he does is great. Although again, have a look at frame 164. No, it does look like that his hand is actually going through through the donut as he's doing this spread. He's not. I can actually see that, you know, he's kind of like, it's not. But the thing is that it's tangenting so much as he's doing this gesture that maybe one of the things that you can do is that as he comes back, you can leave the hand that hasn't got the donut on frame 159 on the desk for a few more frames. So as he does this motion, you know, where he's going to flick the donut up to frame, bum, 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 yeah, I'd almost do it to frame 174. His hand can still be on the desk, so he can do the whole flick with the wrist. And as he's coming back then, he can bring the other hand up afterwards, okay? So, you know, I think you can just leave it there and make him come back just a few frames later, just because it will clear up that action as well. You don't have two things happening at the same time. You can break that action up into one, and then he comes back and he rests his hand on the chair like that. Okay. And one of the things I'd say about your next shot is you've got a jump cut here, and this is purely a staging note on frame around 199. It's the same shot pretty much as the one that you've got before. The only thing that you've done is that you've cut up closer. And again, just in the spirit that making sure that every shot that you choose says something cinematically about what's going on, I'd say for this shot, use a wider lens. You want to see more of the back of the monitor, so visually you can still understand this is a computer monitor, and also you want to leave out the screen left. There's a lot of negative space there, so you want to have more focus on her than having this huge gap of space behind her. So also another thing that I do as well is that by having a wider lens, you're also going to see the top of her head as well. And again, it's one of those things that this shot you can really engage with what's going on the screen. So really the two elements, you know, filmically there would be important here is her reaction to the screen. It's almost like having the two most important characters on the screen as well. So you really need to focus that the screen is a focal element in your screen. It's not on a corner, it's actually in shot, and she's there as well. So leave the space kind of like out. So it would be like, by widening the lens, it'll going to look like you're pulling out a little bit, but you'll be able to see more of the top of her head, you'll see more of the screen. You just have to move everything to screen left a bit more so that those two things are centered. One side of the screen is the monitor, one side of the screen is her, and it's pretty much a 50-50 split, okay? So, I like the way that she comes up here. Again, you're doing nice stuff with the hands, the way that she's looking, the way that she's going down. And again, by having a wider lens as well, when she comes down to 2.48, you'll see the edge of the desk as well. And so that you're just going to make that your scene just that tad bit sweeter. I like the way that she looks up. Her eyes are kind of like a bit glowy to an extent. Her pupil. Yes, her pupils actually have a texture that's reflecting light as well. It's a minor note, but sometimes you can notice that her pupil is grey and not black, and realistically that should be black all the time. So try see if you can have a look at maybe throwing a specular map or something on the eye texture that you're using, just to make sure that that black is going to be 100% black all the time. So as she looks over here, her eyebrow looks a little bit crooked at frame 200, just because you've got this shape where the brow's coming up, and really this side of the eyebrow is coming back down. You've got kind of like a really tight curve at the end of your screen right eyebrow coming down over here, and it almost feels more natural that it would be flicked up a little bit more, not completely going whoop upwards, but just a little bit on the side, a bit higher, so that the shape is just a bit smoother as it comes off down the eye. And then she takes the blink, comes back up, goes back up again. There's a lot of eyebrow movements here which are okay, but again on frame 227, look out for the ridge that she's got in her top eyebrow over here. Try and see if you can smooth that out a little bit, because it looks like a straight line going up and a straight line coming down on frame 227, and that you want to keep it a bit smoother than that, and you know, really push into the expression that you've got, kind of like frame 237, because I know the lines that you're going for is very much this kind of like drooping, you know, shape of the eyebrows that she goes into later on. But I think that, you know, you want to push that pose just a little bit earlier. I don't think you need to be jumping around that much. So pretty much just focus on 2 or 3 main eyebrow shapes, and even if they go up and down, they still kind of like maintain in that space, because very much it would be along the lines of, if she's like this and she goes down just a little bit, you know, her eyebrows would always be roughly in the same shape. You can soften it out, but really stick to 1-1-1 pose. And then we come back here again. I think with cutting back, this is pretty much the same shot as you had before. The thing is that the angle is much tighter in the one you had before. So your shot 1 cinematically is very well laid out. There's some good balance, there's some good composition, and your other shot 3, when you come back to it, it's essentially the same camera again, but you're just trying to vary it. And I think that if you've got a good strong shot like the shot that you've got on shot 1, go back to something along those lines in frame 3, even if it means that you have to just pull in a little bit more so that they're a bit more balanced, because evidently you're going to have a bit more room. I think it's not a problem to cut back to the original camera again and have it, you know, just using that composition again, so you're kind of like going into a detail and you're pulling back at that point. So having a look at your final shot, not from a staging point, when she looks over at him, I think one of the things that you can do as well is clear up the screen left hand from her as she's going into this take over here on frame 268. Try to see if you can avoid the intersection with the head over here, and try to get the flick of the hand to happen below the actual chin, instead of actually having it happen in front of the actual hand over there. And then she's doing this presentation over here. You've got a nice flick of the wrist. The fingers, they feel a little bit rigid to me to an extent. And I think it's probably because they're in a pose on the desk. They're opening up as they come up, and then they're going into kind of like this take. So you've got really like 3 motions happening there, where really what you can do is that the hand comes up from frames 265, and it stays very much in the same position that it was on the desk on 265 all the way up to pretty much 274, and then they open up, and I think that'll make it just a little bit better because you have, you know, the main motion of the hands opening on the flick itself. And then another thing that you can do as well is that on frame 279, have a look at her screen left hand and move it back just so that we can see the elbows separate a little bit from the actual body, and that will sweeten that pose up a little bit more. She does seem to be leaning a little bit too far forward as well. I'm not sure if you should move the hips maybe back a little bit as well so that she looks like a little bit more in balance, but it's a strong pose, you know. I think it still works very well, and I think that, you know, when she comes back to frame 307, I think that there, you know, you can actually rotate the spine back a little bit as well, so that when she looks over, currently she's just looking over pretty much like this, you can have a little bit of a lift there just to sweeten that pose up and make her look a little bit less locked. And then when she comes forward, the last pose, I really don't understand what's motivating the hips coming up. I can see that you want her to lean on the desk, but I don't get that motion of the hips coming up so exaggeratedly, because it does look like, you know, there's no weight at this point at all. And if she was actually gonna just lean on the desk, there's no reason why the body just wouldn't curve forward and just do this over here. There's no rise and drop over there. So very much what I'd do is that on frame 326, I'd take that rise of the hips out and replace it really with the hips moving backwards, same height roughly, and the body just leaning forward. Curl that spine forward a little bit more and have her drop her hand on the desk, and again make sure that it touches the desk, and, you know, you splay the hands out so it feels like she's actually contacting that surface a little bit more. And then with him, just as a final note, I love the way that he kind of like goes well. And again, I'd look out just at frame 311, see if you can clear up again the tangent with the hand and the chin, especially with the donut. Make sure that that doesn't pass in front of his face like that, because he's really almost going to like rest his arm in the chair there. So you can really get that elbow at frame 314 and drop it down quite a bit and have him, you know, just hit the side of the chair much more. And really I think that that, you know, makes the pose just a little bit better. And I'd say, you know, get the elbow to hit first and then have the wrist drop so it feels like there's a contact, and that the hand with the donut doesn't drop until the point where he's actually, you know, relaxed, and then his hand can drop over there. But it's loads of nitpicky stuff just because, you know, it's polishing week, but it's looking really, really, really good, man. You know, I think you got a great assignment here. So thanks very much. And if you need anything during the week, or you want to post up another PR or anything, just let me know. Okay, take care, man. Bye.